That's a lot of books. And you know what they say about a lot of books, right? It means you got a lot of knowledge. I got a lot of knowledge in this thinker. Hello and welcome, my ghouls and tools, to a brand new show. We'll see how long it goes on for, but a brand new thing called Reading Renzo. I have been doing a lot of reading this year. Specifically of the comic book variety. Comic books have never really been a medium I've ever been super interested in. The most I can think of back in the day was things like Garfield. I loved Garfield a lot for some reason, I don't know why. And then I guess things like Bone, and to a lesser extent like Amulet, but those are more graphic novels more than anything. But like, I've never been a huge comic book guy. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, I had gotten an X-Men comic for some kid's birthday party, and I didn't like the art style, and I thought it was dumb looking, and I didn't understand it. Like, two people were kissing each other, and I was like, ew, what? So I was never much of a comic book guy. I kind of put that out of my head. I guess manga, I was really into manga at a certain point, more towards like right before I really got into Bionicle. But even then I was a fake fan. I bought so much manga and I barely read any of it because I was just like, I was illiterate. Well, I still am illiterate, so nothing's really changed, I guess, there. I did have these. These are the Sonic Archie comics. These are specifically the super specials. This came out in like, I think October of 2011. And this compiles a couple stories from, this was more or less like the Ian Flynn era when he took over writing the Archie Sonic stuff. I really like these stories. These are actually really solid. I know the Archie comics have a bit of a bad name, especially due to a certain individual, but specifically this era of Archie was the best era, I think. It really was the most free, and Ian Flynn is somebody who really understands Sonic the Hedgehog as a whole, as we're going to discuss later. But I have 4 of these super specials. I think they made like 15 or something like that. I only ever collected the first 4. I also have a bunch of like actual little issues too. I have some Sonic Universe. I think I got this. This might have been from an action figure Jazzwares pack, because Jazzwares used to do action figure packs back in the day. I know that for a fact because this came from a 2-pack. No, was it a 2-pack? Might have been a 2-pack of a shiny silver and a shiny shadow that Jazzwares did. These were really fun. These were really, really fun back in the day, and I absolutely I figured you guys would want to see this because, hey, look at that. Pretty cool. And then I think there's one. Yeah, I was really into these Archie comics. They were really fun. I didn't get a lot of them, and they were kind of few and far between, but I did collect a good amount. This was kind of, I think this was like during 2012, 2013. I want to say 2012. This looks like 2012 to me. It was Sonic, then it was manga and anime, then it was Bionicle. That's how it went. In 2025, I read more comics than I ever thought I would. This medium has always been something that's kind of eluded me. It's always escaped me. It's always been something that I've been interested about, I've been hearing about, but you know, never once during watching any of the MCU did I ever go, man, I really want to read a comic book. I never felt that. Years of watching Robo talk about comics and his love for, you know, Jim Lee X-Men or whatever. There's a local comic shop near my work that I go to every once in a while. And that comic book shop has always been really fun, but that was primarily a place to go buy figures. I rarely bought comics there. Occasionally I'd pick up a couple One Piece manga when I was collecting One Piece, but I don't even collect One Piece anymore. But yeah, wasn't really a shop that I'd go to look at comic books. I think my friend group specifically have really embraced reading comic books and collecting comics, especially since there's so many comics out there that relate to specific interests. Like, if you're into something, there's probably a comic book that you would be interested in. Like my buddy Ty, Kasai, he really loves Mega Man, and there are these really cool Mega Man comics coming out. This video is basically me going to be walking through everything I read this year. You can use this as somebody who might be new to comics like I was, and use it as like a nice like jumping on point to just give you some basic thoughts as somebody who hasn't been reading comics for a very long time. Or you can use this as someone who is familiar with these stories and just wants to hear a different take or wants to hear what I personally think of them. Warning, some of my takes are are a little bit weird because, again, I'm still kind of new to this whole medium. I haven't been reading comics for a very long time. So some of my opinions are a little goofy, but again, it's my opinion. You know, this isn't a fact. This is just how I'm perceiving a lot of these stories. And yeah, I'm going to have different timestamps throughout the video, so if you want to skip to certain comics that you are interested in, or certain stories that you want to hear me talk about, or you want to skip others, whatever, that'll be there so you can go around. This is going to be a very long video because I'm going to be rambling a lot, but I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible. And yeah, we're just going to have some fun here. We're going to do a little bit of reading Renzo, and I'm also going to leave the door open to potentially doing a sequel or a second video, and more to come, maybe like as a yearly recap for everything that I've read. It's just an idea. I don't know. This is still early in my whole mind, and I've been thinking about this for I've been thinking about doing this video specifically for like more than a month now, so I really just want to kind of get it out there, just kind of start talking about some comics, because again, a lot of these stories are things that have genuinely impacted me in ways that I could never have imagined. Which has been awesome. That's a very cool experience, but it's also something that is a little bit interesting and fun. I haven't gotten to fully talk about it with really much of anyone. Obviously, again, there's a lot of you guys who aren't going to care, so bye-bye. We should start with what really started this all. My first endeavor into the world of comic books. I don't remember what the circumstances were, like what I was feeling, but I was particularly thinking about Spider-Man at the time. Maybe Thatch and Okoto were talking about Spider-Man, as they often do, and the Spider-Man comics, and I, for some reason, felt compelled to dive a little bit more into that world. But one of the first comics I've ever picked up had to be Spider-Man Epic Collection, Great Power. This is specifically from 1962 to 1964. It is a very beefy book. There's a lot of shit. It is, I believe, almost 500 pages, about 480 pages, which is insane. So there's a lot of early stories in here. And I never finished this. I did not finish this. I got a couple issues in, and I did not like the writing style. Obviously, this was written almost 100 years ago at this point, maybe more, actually, getting close to 100 years ago. So this wasn't really my jam, and that's the thing about old comic books. If you are not a fan of, like, I do not recommend you start with old comic books unless you're into this kind of thing, because a lot of the writing is very weird, it's very goofy, it's written for a very different time. That's what kind of alienated me from comics for a while, is that I got into this expecting to just be in love with these stories, and I was not. I had a very hard time getting through this. Again, I think I literally only read like 3 or 4 issues. I don't know, it was just weird. It was so bizarre to me, and it was so strange. But that's kind of the charm of old comic books. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit later, because they do have their own charm to them. And it is specifically why a lot of people love these old eras and stuff like that. This is Steve Ditko, this is Stan Lee goodness from the 60s, and it is honestly, I mean, it is great, to be fair. It is honestly wonderful, but it is just a little too much for me. I do need to give this one another shot, because I have a reason to, based on something I'm going to talk about in just a bit here, but let's just say that this was a very interesting dive at the time that I wasn't quite ready for. That's one thing. You definitely need to know what you want to read beforehand. Listen to some recommendations. You know, really, if you want to get into reading Spider-Man specifically, you don't have to start here. This is not necessary. There are so many Spider-Man comics that you can get into. If you're looking for something classic, if you're looking for something with this vibe, the old school, dialogue heavy, goofy Spider-Man, here you go. But if you're not into that, there are so many stories. Talk to anyone who reads Spider-Man comics, or just comics in general. They will recommend something really good to you. I'm not even saying this is bad. It's just, it is a hard starting point, I think, for a lot of people, because, especially if you're not into this era of comic. Never finished it, wanting to get back to it, but there are other Spider-Man stories I would be interested in checking out, and I still need to check out. So as I mentioned, that kind of turned me away from comics for a while. That single experience was like, maybe I don't need to read comics. I think I'm good. I put it on my bookshelf, just kind of let it rest for a while. I kind of forgot about it. And I kept it out of my mind until, again, our comic interests kind of started ramping up. My friends started talking more and more about comics, and specifically I had discovered a thing that I wasn't super aware of. I had heard about it because from people like Kasai who were telling me about it, but so the Sonic comics are a little bit weird because there are the Archie comics, which I've already talked about in this video, and those are a little bit weird because they have like 20 plus years of history. And they're cool, but they are very hard to get into, especially later. I mean, you could say we'll start from the reboot stuff, and it's still a little bit confusing because they do reference old characters and stuff. Ultimately, Archie lost the rights to Sonic, and that's kind of how it went. It wasn't long until IDW got the rights to make Sonic comics, and we got these bad boys, the Sonic IDW collection. Let me tell you, these are some special books. So as someone, like I mentioned before, who was very interested in the Archie, not with the whole history or everything like that, but as someone who grew up with the Archie comics, I was very interested about the IDW comics. And I heard some bad things about them, but I also heard some really, really good things about them. Now let me tell you, I have read specifically these three. I haven't read any more. I haven't gotten any more. These are the only ones I have. You got the first collection, the second collection, and of course the third collection. I think there's 6 right now, maybe 7, but I think 2 are on pre-order. So they have quite a bit of story here. The first story arc was really good. I really enjoyed it. It follows after the events of Sonic Forces, which to me is really weird because Sonic Forces is not a great game. I don't really like that game or that game's story. I mean, I think the story would be okay if it was a little bit taken in a different way. I don't know, it's very bizarre. It was really weird to read this comic knowing that it took place after Forces. However, we're introduced to some great new characters, which is a very important thing for Sonic comics for me. There has to be good original characters, and they are good. And all that being said, it is good. The first arc is really, really enjoyable. However, the next arc, the Metal Virus arc, is goddamn fantastic. It is one of the best Sonic stories ever told. Apparently, the Metal Virus arc was something Ian Flynn, who, by the way, I'm saying Ian Flynn like you know who it is, but if you don't know, Ian Flynn is the head, like, writer and basically the head of these comics. He's basically in charge of everything. He loves Sonic and he loves the comics. It's very important to him. But yes, Ian Flynn, who took over Archie back in like 2010, 2011, whenever, maybe even earlier than that. But yeah, so Ian Flynn's very important to the history of Sonic. He had the idea for the Metal Virus arc for Archie, really wanted to do it. Archie got canceled. He did this introductory arc and they said, screw it, we're going straight into Metal Virus. And Metal Virus is a ridiculously solid story. It is one of the best Apocalypse stories I've ever read. I didn't think it would be that good, but man, it gets surprisingly dark for a Sonic story, and I was like shocked with how much they were able to do. Now, obviously it's gotta have a happy ending, you know, it's Sonic at the end of the day, whatever. Nah, man, this was a great, great, great story. And just some of the most hyped I've ever been reading anything came from the last few issues of the Metal Virus arc. Obviously, spoilers if you're planning on reading this, don't look at this, but you know. Some great shit here with Super Sonic, Super Silver, just awesome. Love these books. These books are great. I'm gonna continue getting them. I haven't gotten a new one in a while because there's just so much. And also these hardcovers are like the best way to get these comics in my opinion, and they are expensive. So, as somebody who really enjoyed the Archie Sonics and enjoyed that era, this genuinely does feel like a childhood dream come true. That they're still making Sonic comics and that they're still just as good, if not even better, than the stuff that I grew up reading as a kid. It's really, really rewarding. It's also super rewarding because Sonic was kind of a franchise that during the 2010s was kind of kicked down repeatedly and just not really loved that much. So seeing really good Sonic media kind of pop up again and dominate is awesome. It's really rewarding. It's really, really cool. Sonic got me interested in reading comics, and sometimes that's all you need. Start with something that you're familiar with. You don't have to necessarily dive headfirst into Marvel and DC if you're not comfortable, you know? Start with something that you are familiar with and something that you know you're going to enjoy. Something that you know will hit that spark, make you feel like a kid again. But if you want to know what actually really got me into the whole comic book world, because I think I got my first IDW issue in 2024. I'm not confident about that. In fact, the more I think about it, I feel like it might have been 2025. What actually really got me into comic books wasn't those. Again, that was a great introduction, and that was a great way to kind of keep that ball rolling. The Fantastic Four movie hype was big. I wasn't expecting it to hit me, but like a month before the movie came out, I really started to feel it. All the music and the merchandise and the vibe of the movie, it was all going off. It was all blowing up in my head, and I was like, interesting. Because I got into the Fantastic Four through Marvel Rivals. I never cared about the Fantastic Four ever in my entire life, up until Rivals came out and I fell in love with that specific version of those characters. I really like how they are interpreted in that game. But I've never had an attachment to the Fantastic Four. I never have. Except for the fact that I did buy Marvel Legends of them, but that was just because it was a team that needed to go on the shelf, and I didn't have. But the figures weren't very good. If the figures were really good, I might have cared a little bit more, but that Fantastic Four wave was not very good. I was going to Alberta. As you saw, I made a vlog about it, and while I was there, the Fantastic Four hype was really getting to me, and the Lego set had just released. So I ended up picking up that Lego set from the Lego store, which is cool. It's a neat set. But I also ended up picking this up. A return to the Epic Collection with the Fantastic Four, the world's greatest comic magazine, aka Marvel's first family. This wasn't something I was expecting to do. I wasn't expecting to get into the Fantastic Four ever, because of my bad experience with the Spider-Man comic book. I wouldn't even say it was a bad experience, just not an ideal experience. However, I'm happy to report I've read this whole thing, front to back. I've read the entire thing, which is crazy, because this is 60s cheesy craziness at its finest. Jack Kirby insanity, Stan Lee babbly nonsense dialogue, but man oh man did I enjoy this. Now, not every issue's a banger, and a lot of these issues felt like I was really going through it. In fact, I remember there was a point where I tried to read an issue a night at a certain point early, in the year, and there were times where I felt like I would start reading and immediately start dozing off and falling asleep. It happened so many times. I found it very hard to read at times because there's so much dialogue and it's so blah 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 blah. That's part of the charm. This is 1961 to 1963, the first edition. There's no Galactus or anything. This is very early issues, so you get obviously the introduction of characters like Dr. Doom. You get some Skrulls. You get the Watcher is introduced in this, I believe. I don't know if it was his first appearance, but he is introduced in here. Oh, Namor. Namor's a piece of shit. It's in this, but yeah, some really fun stuff. I genuinely believe that this was a much better introduction to the world of classic comic books than the Spider-Man one. Nothing wrong with Spider-Man. This, I somehow finished the whole thing. I pushed through it, and I'm very glad I did, because I really enjoyed my time with this. Again, classic comic good. And then there's also some really outdated things in here, like the fact that Sue is called the Invisible Girl, and she's treated like shit most of the comic, and she just kind of, her only role. In fact, when you read all these issues, you realize that all it boils down to is Johnny and Thing start fighting, and then Reed is like, knock it off, you two, and then Sue is like, Reed, stop them! It's like every single, that is literally verbatim basically how every issue starts. But I kind of love it. It's honestly great, and I really enjoyed it, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as everyone's first Fantastic Four story, but if you are very curious about, I think the reason why I wanted to read it is because the movie was so set on this like 60s reality. I really wanted to like get a piece of that genuine history before watching the movie. The movie and this are very different, I will say. The movie has a lot more stronger definition of who the Fantastic Four are as characters than I think these are, because this was early on. This was different. They were more erratic. They were crazier. The vibe was very different. I still really enjoyed it. This is definitely what actually properly got me into the world of comic books. I'm very glad I pushed through it, because again, this was totally worth the read. Only if you like this nonsense. If you like 60s goodness. I've thought about getting more of these, but truthfully, it becomes a whole rabbit hole, and again, look how many epic collections there are. There are like a billion epic collections for every single character, it gets a little bit hard to track. This was a better introduction to the world of Marvel than the Spider-Man was for me personally. However, while I liked the Fantastic Four and I really enjoyed that collection, there was one thing that really got me reading comic books, and one thing that really got me to appreciate comic books, and that was Superman. I loved James Gunn's Superman. I thought it was a beautiful movie. It's one that I think about a lot, actually. It's weird because the first time I watched it, I don't think I really loved it. I think I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, it was pretty good. That was sort of my takeaway. And then I kept thinking about it, the whole week. I was just like, man, I really want to watch it again. And for the first time since I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, by the way, which is kind of ironic, I went to go see a movie in theaters for a second time. And seeing Superman in theaters again was great. I've seen Superman, I think, 5 times now, so I just love that movie. And I think the reason why I love that movie so much is because it feels so much like just fun, and I think a lot of people regurgitate this thought, but I think it does really feel like a comic book as a movie. You know, I really feel like the way the characters are handled and the way the story is done, it just feels like a really fun comic. And so I was thrown into this world, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about characters like Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho and Hawkgirl and Green Lantern. I'm thinking about all these people I never once thought or cared about in my entire life. And I'm just like, wow, that's a really, really cool achievement. That's really something awesome. And I really, really admire that. So that's why I love Superman so much. And so when it came to getting into the world of DC, I was like, okay, well, what comic am I going to start with? There was a little comic that was recommended to me back in 2022 by my good friend Thatch Mack. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Now, I wanted to read a Superman comic really, really badly. I was told that All-Star Superman is one of the best Superman comics. However, when I thought about reading it first, I was also told that it is a kind of an ambitious and kind of hard read, especially if you're not intimately familiar with Superman. So I kept putting it off. I really wanted to read it, but I was I didn't want to get a bad experience from reading it. You know, I didn't want this story that so many people love to be ruined for me. So I was out of the town. I was on a little trip out of town, and I was doing some shopping, and I saw this lovely hardcover Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and I just latched onto it. And it's important to note that the reason why I latched onto it is also because there was confirmed to be a movie that was an adaptation of this. We didn't know how close it would be at the time, but it was literally called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I'm just going to talk about Supergirl for a hot minute because this has become probably one of my favorite stories of all time, period. One of the most important stories to me personally, and a story that has me thinking about it constantly. I fucking love this comic. I'm sure you can tell too. I've got the single issue right back here with a figure. I actually bought this figure specifically because I read the comic. Also, well, this single issue came with the figure. I needed this. I needed it because of how good this story was. So you don't need a lot of history to get into this comic, which is really cool, by the way. I love comics that do that, where it is open, you don't need to know a lot of history of the character. As long as you have a basic understanding of who they are, you're good to go. I love stories like that. If you have any stories like that, please recommend them to me. And it's one single story. It is a start, middle, and an ending. I love that. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is just a absolutely lovely story about a girl who wants to get revenge for the death of her father, and Supergirl helps her out. I don't even want to say much more than that because of the movie coming out. I think you should read this before the movie, but I personally am okay if the movie is not a one-for-one adaptation of this comic, because this comic is so good. I think I would be okay. I don't know what to expect from the movie personally. And again, I'm okay if it doesn't go one for one. I kind of am okay with the movie doing its own thing in certain aspects, because if the movie was faithful to the book, it would be 90% narration, because Ruthie, or Ruth, I never figured out how to say her name. I think it's Ruthie, is one of the characters, the little girl in this book here. She is narrating like 90% of the book. And actually, at first when I was reading it, I found that to be actually kind of annoying, because I would turn a page and there'd just be a million lines of dialogue, and I'd be like, oh boy. And she's not like an easy speaker either, too. She speaks like very eloquently, so I was like, okay, here we go, another friggin' 10 paragraphs of Ruthie yapping. But I grew fond of it very quickly. It's a very important part of the story. The artwork specifically by, I'm gonna butcher this name, I apologize in advance, Bilquis Evely? Gorgeous, holy shit. Just some of the best artwork I think I've ever seen. I'm like at a loss for words because of how beautiful this book is. So that definitely helps the experience. That single-handedly, like, that is what carries this book in my opinion. And it's something the movie might not genuinely have. I mean, again, the movie will probably look really good too, but like, I don't know if it's gonna beat this, man. Holy shit, it is. Oh, it's gorgeous. It is so gorgeous. I'm not gonna lie to you too, I don't know if I fully understand the story. Like, when I finished reading it, I was like, okay, I'm planning on rereading it again very soon, and then I'll probably reread it before the movie comes out because I love this story that much. But this is a story I recommend to anyone. You don't need to know basically anything about DC. Just, it is literally a space adventure, space journey with Supergirl and this girl, Ruthie, going to find this killer and encountering wacky hijinks all along, and it is just gorgeously told. It's very episodic too, so every issue is basically its own thing. Like, there's one issue where Supergirl's trapped on a planet and she doesn't have her powers and she's dying basically. That's a great issue. There's one where they go to this town and things are not what they seem. I'm not going to spoil anything because it's a really cool issue. There's one where Supergirl has to outrun something that can chase her to the end of time, and it gets really insane with the visuals, and again, don't want to spoil anything, it's really goddamn cool. Please read Woman of Tomorrow. I beg of you. It is immaculate. And maybe people have already said this a million times. Actually, there's this foreword by Tom King, who did the writing. I know people are a little weird. It seems like people are weird about Tom King now. I don't really know much about that, but there's this foreword, and it is talking about him and his daughter specifically, and when you understand the context of that, it is wonderful. It is gorgeous. There is one issue particularly that really hit me more than I thought it would, and it is involving Krypton, Supergirl's planet specifically. Please read Woman of Tomorrow. That's all I can say. The Sonic IDW comics got me into the concept of reading comic books. The Fantastic Four got me into the idea of appreciating older comics and appreciating characters' histories. This got me into the medium downright. This is what started my love for comic books and what started all of this. I wouldn't have as many issues of comics as I do now without this. And I'm very glad this was one of the first few things I read, because I don't know if I would have cared as much about comics as I do now without this. So, please read Woman of Tomorrow. I've said it like 60 times. Please, please, pretty please, read this comic. You will not regret it. Okay, now we're gonna take a little bit of a different swing into something that I wasn't as enthusiastic about, but doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Like I said, my opinions are a little goofy, so please bear with me. After reading Woman of Tomorrow, I was on a complete high. I was like, oh man, it's just gonna be good. But I had purchased one other book before I started reading either of them. I actually had to do a bit of a decision factor for which one I was going to read next, whether it was going to be Woman of Tomorrow or this next comic. I was recommended this comic by Thatch and a few other people who were like, this is one of the best DC stories ever, this is one of the defining DC stories to read. So I was very, very curious about it. DC, The New Frontier. This is an interpretation of the DC universe where it is essentially what it is, to boil it down, it is the transition, in the simplest terms, it is a transition from the golden age of DC Comics to the silver age of DC Comics. And a lot of those characters and a lot of that history is fleshed out through the sense of this being a post-World War II, the world is changing, and everything is changing, and we have to change with the times, and superheroes are being persecuted, and they're joining the government, or they're whatever. I didn't love this. I'm gonna be honest. I did not love this as much as I was hoping I would, because I think what I wanted when I picked this up was a straight up Justice League story. That's basically what I wanted, right? I wanted something that was very much just about Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter. The main guys, right? That's not what this story is. This does not focus on the heavy hitters. This focuses on some of the lesser characters. There are characters like Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, who do get a lot of love. Barry Allen as the Flash, or is it Wally West? No, I think it's... I actually don't remember. Is it Barry or is it Wally? Whatever. Like, this is a very well-written book, but I will say there are some things that I personally didn't attach to. Some of the characters I didn't really care about too often. They spent a lot of time on people like Rick Flag, who is cool. I don't have a lot of attachment to personally, except outside of like Peacemaker and stuff like that. There's a lot of randos in this book who, again, I understand that's the point. But like, I really wanted to see Batman. I really wanted to see more of Superman. I really wanted to see more of Wonder Woman. They are in this book, but not a lot. Batman specifically doesn't get a lot of love in this book. And that's personally what I wanted. Now, had I had said that before this was recommended, maybe opinions would have changed, but this just didn't hit me in the same way. And also, it cuts around a lot. Like, there is a very broad, wide story that cuts to like, it'll go from like Hong Kong to like Missouri in like a frame, and it's like, what are we doing? I understand what it's trying to do, and I totally get it, and I totally respect it. I will say there's a lot of love. I love the art style, it being sort of this better version of like the Bruce Timm art style is wonderful. If you don't know who Bruce Timm is, he does Batman the Animated Series, and his art style has kind of defined a lot of like the Justice League cartoons and stuff like that. I'm not gonna sit here and say this is a bad story. It's just not something that personally vibed with me as much as I will say by the ending, I was on board. But by the time it was the ending, I had read like 300, 400 pages, and I was just like, man, it took a long time to get going. I will also say I did take some hiatuses between reading this. I took a couple months away, because this book just didn't really grip me like Supergirl, or even anything, even Fantastic Four, that I repeatedly would almost fall asleep to. That maybe took me like over a month or so to finish. This took me like several months to finish. I think I need to give this another shot. I really do think I need to reread this, but I want to read other DC stories first, so maybe I can appreciate this a little bit more, because again, this was a bit of a slow burn, and it was something that I didn't necessarily love. Now, does that mean that's bad? No, not necessarily. This is a very, very cool book. I'm just gonna thumb through a bit of the art here so you guys can see. I mean, the art is gorgeous. The story was really interesting. It's just not something that personally I think I was like in love with. I need to reread it. I need to give it another shot. I need to reappreciate this, because what we have here is essentially a great piece of art that I don't necessarily understand. And look, that's gonna happen. Not everyone's gonna love everything that's beloved by everyone. You know, that's just gonna happen. It's very good. I just need to emphasize that. It is a very good story, just not one that personally settled with me a lot, unlike other comics that I'm gonna talk about and that I have talked about. It didn't hit that same vibe. So I need to read more DC stories, and I think I can come back and actually properly appreciate this. Maybe not. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I'll never get it. I'm sorry if anyone got really offended by what I was saying here, and it was like, you're an idiot, you don't understand it, it's one of the greatest stories ever. Look, they cooked. Darwin Cook, he cooked. Okay, that's all I'll say. But maybe I didn't appreciate the food. Let's say I didn't appreciate the food. There you go. So we've only got a few books left, so I'm not going to spend as much time with these. Those are bigger stories. These next few are a little bit shorter, so I'm not going to talk about these as long. The next one, this is not even really honestly worth that mentioning, but I figured I'd just mention this anyways, because I picked up this Marvel Rivals. As I mentioned, I'm a huge Rivals fan. So this is a Marvel Rivals issue of some sort. I have seen some of the Rivals comics. This is the most whatever thing I've ever read. I literally, I read it and I was like, okay. Again, I love Marvel Rivals, but this just feels kind of like lazy. I don't know, it feels weird. Again, I appreciate the art and I appreciate the work and everything, but I wish that these stories were a little bit more interesting. Maybe there are better Rivals comics. This is just one I read. This is about Krakoa and the Hellfire Gala with Ultron as the main villain. And it's okay. It's honestly not bad at all. It's just not super interesting, unfortunately. It's just kind of cheesy, and I just wish there were better Rival stories, but I understand it's Marvel Rivals and it's a video game. It's a tie-in comic, so it's not necessarily needed to be enjoyed or whatever. I mean, the cover's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, I might frame that just for the cover. Speaking of comics I picked up like purely because of Rivals, this is a Fantastic Four issue that I only have due to the cover. I thumbed through it. I haven't read it. It's just like Sue's trapped on an abandoned planet or something. I don't even know. I didn't read. I don't care. I literally just got it for the cover, which is super shallow of me. But you put Susan Storm on a cover, I'm gonna get it. This is how it works. Continuing on the Marvel train, we have a story that when I picked up Woman of Tomorrow, this was actually something I picked up at the exact same time, but I actually just recently got around to finally reading. That being the Marvel Peach Momoko Demon Days. So, if you aren't aware of what this is, basically, if you're unfamiliar, Demon Days is a sort of alternate universe style world where it takes place in Japan, mostly, and it actually opens in feudal, like ancient Japan, where you've got a wandering swordswoman named Sai, who is Psylocke, obviously, and the only reason why I picked it up is because I knew that's where Marvel Rivals Psylocke came from. I mean, there's a pretty good look at her. You can see the first issue there. Demon Days is cool. It's really, really sick. I think the main appeal of these books are the art style. The phenomenal artwork by Peach Momoko is absolutely gorgeous. The plot and the story, not as interesting. It wasn't bad necessarily. I don't think it was bad. It's a little bit like, I don't know. It's a little like simple. You know, it's very simple. But again, the artwork is absolutely what carries these books. The Peach Momoko's artwork is goddamn incredible. Like, it is insane how good she is at this kind of stuff. It is like, it's honestly not even fair how good she is at art. Like, I'm looking at the pages right now, just trying to like, I'm just like looking at these pages and I'm just like falling in love all over again. These were awesome. But again, very simple story, very, very simple. I think there's a sequel actually to Demon Days, which is good. I do want to pick that up because again, this was a really, really enjoyable story. And I had fun, but again, don't expect anything super deep out of this. I hope that's different for something else I picked up that I'm going to talk about later, but this is kind of more of like a one-shot, like one-off story. And like a good example is the main character, she finds out she's a demon and like she's like, I need to go find out information about my family. And the next chapter she's like fighting like she's known how to fight her entire life and she's like, she knows things, and it's like, it's a little much. But I will say again, you know, I don't feel like you read these for the story. I think you read these for the artwork, because I'm gonna emphasize this for like the millionth time. It's just absolutely beautiful. It's wonderful. If you're into really cool art, especially art like this, give it a look. Give it a thumb through. Give it a read. I think it is great. This is technically my first actual X-Men book, which is so weird. If you guys have any actual X-Men books to recommend, without the obvious that I'm gonna talk about later, if you have any actual X-Men stories you want to recommend, go ahead and feel free, because X-Men is a very interesting world to me. I've always been curious about it, but X-Men 97 was like the best introduction to X-Men that I ever could have gotten, so. Bro. Switching gears from something entirely different, not Marvel or DC, we're going to talk very, very quickly about the Mighty Nine Origins Jester Lavore. This is a Critical Role, basically a prequel story. So this was written obviously before the show had come out. The show literally has just come out, so this was written obviously way before. And obviously this was written probably after or like during the campaign too. So these are really, really cool. This is Dark Horse Comics specifically, I want to say that. Also, by the way, look how thin that is. This is a very simple book. I think it's literally like... The main story itself is only like 52 pages long. So this is a very short thing. I only got it because I am a massive Jester fan. We stan Jester, okay? I'm not hearing any Jester slander. She is the best character in the entire Mighty Nine. Thought about getting some other characters' books like Not, but I want to kind of save that for when it gets to that backstory in the campaign, because I genuinely, or in the show, because I genuinely don't know anything, and I know it's gonna hit like a semi-truck. But this is really cute. This was fun. It was a very simple read. I didn't really love it. I think her story is done a lot better in the show. This felt a little bit weak in some aspects, but it's got a very cute art style. It's very fun. I think that you can just, if you are a Critical Role fan, just pick it up and read it. It's super cute. The quality of this book is great too, by the way. Like, it's hardcover. It feels good. It's, again, ridiculously short, but it is really, really cool. There are Vox Machina comics I might be interested in grabbing. I'm not so certain about that, but they're cool. I only got this, by the way, because I was asking Ty, hey, are there any really cool like D&D comics or any stories like that? I'm very interested in getting into like more medieval comics, and he just recommended these. He didn't really say anything else, so it's cool. It was neat. It was a fun read, but it wasn't really anything that sat with me, to be honest. We're going to wrap up my thoughts with one of the most interesting comic book runs that I could have read, and one that I have a lot of thoughts about. Not too many thoughts, I'm not going to go on too long, but yeah, so I read Marvel Daredevil Born Again comics. This is a few issues, I guess, from the 80s of a storyline, and I really, really, really liked it. It was really good. I'm surprised how much I liked it. I did not think this was going to be as well written and as interesting as I thought it was, to the point where I was genuinely reading a lot of this comic book out loud in voices. Like, at night I would be thumbing through the pages and being like, actually reading along with it. This is a very cool story about Daredevil. A lot of it is inspired by the events of Daredevil Season 3.
Hey, future editor Renzo here. Obviously that sentence didn't make any sense. I meant to say that the Netflix show was inspired by the comic. That makes a lot more sense. They didn't take things from the future. That doesn't make any... Okay, yep.
The Netflix show, so if you haven't seen that, you should watch that. However, I think I had built up certain expectations for this book, and they weren't really paid off. Like, by the time the book ended, I thought it was like the halfway point. I was like, oh, okay, cool, that's the halfway point, we're gonna get more. But then the book ends, and I'm like, oh. So there were some events that I thought were gonna happen in this book that just did not happen. And that made me a little bit sad. That made me a little disappointed. And I also found out those events actually didn't even happen until like another 10 years later, which is insane, by the way, because I totally thought that those events happened in this book. I'm not going to say what they are because it's a major spoiler, but yeah, no, if you know any, I was just completely led wrong. But this is a really solid story, and the more I've thought about it over the next few days, while I am sad those things didn't happen, and there are some other things I wish did happen too, like there's actually not a definitive fight between Kingpin and Daredevil after the events of like the first few issues. Like, they do fight, but then they don't fight again, and that made me really sad. But other than that, this is a wonderful, wonderful story. Again, it is pure 80s, just like noir, like drama. It is gorgeous. Also, this art, immaculate. It is so good. It's like, it's serious enough, but also so stylized that just everything looks good. There are so many specific panels from this book, like this, that are just, they catch your eye and make you really think about them. They are so well done, and so just like so interesting, and the way this story is told is very interesting. I know why people appreciate Frank Miller as an author. I totally see it. I totally get it. He just kills it on this book. I've never read anything Frank Miller before in my life, so this really was just one of those stories that just hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting. It didn't hit me as hard as something like Supergirl, but I really love this story. So any Daredevil recommendations that anyone has, throw them out, because this, if it anything like this, I felt like it ended right when I thought we were getting going. Like I thought it was gonna have more of a definitive ending, I guess. It doesn't. It is a comic book run within the Daredevil series, so it doesn't have an ending, unfortunately. I mean, it has an ending, but it doesn't have like a definitive ending, you know? That's basically all I'm saying. But yeah, beautiful book, but still a wonderful story. If you are even remotely a Daredevil fan and you have not read this, what are you doing with your life? So I believe this is everything I read in 2025. A whole lot of books, which I have to give myself some credit, considering I don't read very much and I'm kind of illiterate. That's pretty impressive. There's a lot of big books in there. Genuinely though, getting into comics has been one of the most fun aspects of the of this whole year, because just discovering these new stories and realizing that these stories can affect me in ways that I never expected, and that something like, again, Supergirl can like really just change my life and make me think about it constantly was really, really cool. It was kind of like opening up a layer of something that I didn't know was there, and really appreciating a different form of media. You know, I've seen movies, I've seen TV shows, and I've always really appreciated, and video games, I've always really appreciated them, but comics was always something that I never really quite understood. I never really was able to get into them. So really just being able to like crack open crack it all open and get into this this array of comics was really, really fun, and I plan on doing more. I actually have to stop myself because I was spending too much money on comics, and I had to, there was so much stuff I hadn't read, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta stop. You know, I gotta hold back a little bit. Or like I'm doing a lot of like looking around and being like, ooh, that looks pretty, ooh, that looks shiny. That's a bad habit, and it will probably lead to me being even more broke than I already am, but it's been a lot of fun. For a bit of fun, I'm going to show you guys some stuff that I haven't read yet, and I will probably do a follow-up video, maybe at the end or maybe midway through next year. That might be kind of how we do it. Maybe we'll do like halfway through the year, and then maybe we'll do like towards the end of the year, do a Reading Renzo episode for that. We'll see. But I'm going to just show you guys some stuff I haven't read yet and just kind of go through it. So as previously teased, I was talking about Peach Momoko, and I was talking about all this extra stuff. So I did actually end up picking up Ultimate X-Men #1. I was actually going to pick up 2 issues, but I refrained from doing that because I haven't read it yet. I don't know. Something I ended up picking up purely on a whim for like nostalgia, because I remembered this was a thing from my childhood, and I like completely like, I had like, oh shit, are they still making these things? The first Mask comics. This is an omnibus. Now, fun fact, I've never seen the movie. So it's like, why the hell would I buy this? Well, again, I watched like a Nostalgia Critic video or something back in the day, and I watched it a lot. I was really into that video for some reason, of the first Mask comics, and it's a very violent, kind of brutal comic, like crime comic. It looks really fun. It looks really cool. It looks really crazy. I'm actually genuinely really interested to read it. I just haven't gone along to it yet. I'm very curious. Again, I'm not a huge Mask guy, so this was more so something I had heard about as a kid, and something that I was like, kind of like, okay, let's go for it. We were talking about DC earlier, and of course I did end up getting All-Star Superman Compact Comics. Again, I walked into the comic shop, I grabbed this, and it looks great, it looks really cool, but I am very intimidated that I will not understand it much, you know? So there are other Superman stories I want to read. I'm curious if anyone knows specifically if there's any other stories. I have heard Superman for All Seasons is pretty good. This looks insane. Like, even just thumbing through it, like I'm like, I don't, maybe this is a bad read. Like, I know Okoto really likes it, but he's a lot more like better at comprehension and stuff like that. He has a deeper appreciation to DC than I do, so maybe I'll hate this. I don't know. I don't want to hate. That's the thing. I don't want to hate this. I want to like it. Like, I would hate to open this up and be like, I don't get it. I got more Premier collections because they're so good. I, of course, got Fantastic Four and Hawkeye. I've heard great things about this Hawkeye run. This is Matt Fraction. This is what inspired the Hawkeye show with Kate Bishop and stuff. It looks really fun. I really dig the art style specifically. I think it looks really, really dope. And then this Fantastic Four, I've heard, is a little bit of an interesting read. It's a little bit more complicated. This is the Jonathan Hickman run, and I've heard that it is a little bit like kind of extreme, and I will admit the art style is not my favorite. It's very like realistic, and it also just looks crazy, to be honest. Like it looks really like bizarre. So I'm a little bit worried about starting, considering the only Fantastic Four comics I've read have been the original 1960s introduction and then this. So it's like I went from like 1 to 100 real fast, but maybe there's a more middle ground story that I could find. It's very cool that Marvel are doing these, and DC. I love these smaller comics. I want to get more. They are doing a Punisher one next year that I'm probably going to end up grabbing too, because I've never read a Punisher comic, and my buddy Okoto loves Punisher. And we have Paper Girls. This is a comic done by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff, I don't know how to say these names. And I've heard really cool things about it, and I've thumbed through some of the pages, and it looks pretty crazy. So it's like set in the late 1980s. Give me Stranger Things vibes. Very curious about it. Don't know if I'm gonna continue reading it. We'll see how I like this. You know, this was kind of bought on a whim, but if it's an original story, and I have heard really good, like I said, I've heard great things about it, so yeah. All right, that was more yapping than I feel like was necessary, and a lot of reading, and I'm very tired now, but yeah, I am very thankful if you actually sat here and watched the entire video, as always, and if you like reading Renzo, hey, maybe swing back around, maybe we'll do another one next year, you know? I only plan to read more. I'm really enjoying this, getting into this world. Again, it's an expensive and dangerous world, but it is a fun world. So if you are interested in seeing more reading Renzo, let me know. And I'll read some more. I'll read shit. I'll read some more shit. Yes, but I very much appreciate it. And if you are inspired to pick any of these things up, let me know what you think. Like, let me know what your favorite comics are. Let me know what you, if there's anything you think you'd recommend. Let me know if there's anything you think I should avoid, you know? I'm very curious, because comics are it's such a big, unknown, untapped world, and it's so interesting to me because it is like such a bizarre reality, and I'm just, yeah, it's very interesting. So yeah, thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and until next time, keep reading, my fellow readers. I hate you!